Hey, Dino Rizzo here. Welcome to a new series we're calling Unscripted Conversations with Dino. You know, the thing I love most about ARC is that we help launch new churches and we create space for connection between existing churches. We believe in the saying, don't do ministry alone. And that is our biggest strength as a network of like-minded churches. You know, I get to travel around the world, talk to some of those incredible pastors and leaders. And they're serving and they're giving their lives to the cause of Jesus Christ, making such a difference in their cities and in their communities. But we're excited to extend what we get to see and learn to you. We get real, we get raw, discussing stories of church planning, leadership, struggles, relationships, all unscripted, of course. Together, we'll witness the incredible strength and diversity as we explore different regions and churches that all have their own culture, size, and experience. We're going to celebrate this. We know that God is using these expressions to reach more people for the cause of Jesus Christ. So get ready to be inspired. We're so glad you're here. Man, how awesome it is to be right here in Cincinnati with my man, Brian Cromer. Pastor Brian Cromer moved here, goodness, almost 4 years ago, launched Queen City Church.
Moved in January 18.
With your wife, Heather, 2 boys, a great team.
Yep.
Man, we are in the city, man. Why you love Cincinnati? What's making this city so awesome?
Oh, man. You know, one of my pastors, Pastor Chris.
Yeah.
I heard him say for so many years, don't move anywhere till you have supernatural love for a city.
Yeah.
And when we're in this process of figuring out what city, 100% that's what happened. I mean, we just fell in love. There's nowhere on planet Earth like it.
Maybe it could be Cincinnati?
Oh, absolutely not.
Did you go
Never.
to some other cities?
Never, yes. So we basically just said, God, wherever you want us to go, we're in. Do that. So
awesome.
We created some filters, put a bunch of cities in it, and 3 checked all the marks, and Cincinnati was one of those 3. And then we just try to put ourselves in position to hear. Yeah. And the more we spent time here, the more we absolutely fell in love with the city.
We just ate at a great restaurant downtown.
Yep.
A lot of different people, diverse community, people, all kinds of people in Cincinnati. And man, I mean, it's just, we're proud of you, man. You've done so well.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Almost moved here almost 4 years ago, launched 3 years ago. We're here, 3-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Come on, about to have a party, a Cincinnati party.
Yep.
And it's just incredible. Tell us a little bit about the name.
Yep.
I like the name. A lot of people are trying to figure out names for their churches. And you got to get a city.
Yep.
You got to get a name.
Yep.
So God led you to a city.
Yep.
Tell me 2 things. Tell me when you came here, when did you know this is where we're supposed to be? Yep. And then tell me a little bit of history about the name.
Yep. So one of the things that we did is we asked God for everything that we could to be able to have some filters of things that we knew, because God gave us what we were called to do before where to do it.
Okay.
Whenever you plant a church,
Yeah.
the first question that's asked every time is where.
Yeah.
Then people ask why.
Yeah.
And I felt like God say, flip that.
That's interesting.
I want you to know why, and then I'll show you where.
Right.
And so whenever we started, we knew there were some things that the more we knew the church that we were called to plant, the unique expression that was in our heart, God showed us that. So we put every city in the United States through these filters. Few got put on our heart. Then we just put ourselves in position to hear.
Right.
So we studied every stat, demographic, everything we could, we found. And then for about 3 years, every vacation we took was in those cities. So we'd be coming to Cincinnati for vacation.
That's
and people be like, why are you going to Cincinnati? Be like, it's an underrated city. It's awesome. It's got good food, everything. So we just started
Good
to come.
sports.
Great sports, and then we came, at least good fans. Records not always great. But we had a moment, which is right on the riverbank, and then we had this spot. My wife and I were sitting there, and we just had an amazing trip. And we asked every single person that we came into contact with on that trip, literally, if they saw me, made eye contact with me, I was going to talk to them.
Wow.
Because I just wanted to see if I connected with the city and the people. And so I just started asking every person, if you could describe this city in one word, what would be that one word and why? And
That's a great question.
And number one answer out by far was potential. Potential. And that resonated
even people
so much.
Just on the streets.
On the streets.
At the hotel.
Yeah.
At the restaurant.
People that live in the city.
Talking about Cincinnati.
Absolutely. Just walking the streets.
People just sense There's great potential here.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's what we felt. And we felt like there was potential. So we were sitting on this swing that was overlooking beautiful Baby Brooklyn Bridge and then the Ohio River and this beautiful scene. And we just made a decision. Is this the place where God's calling us to plant a church?
And Heather felt 100%
absolutely
saying, I mean,
because
how important
we felt our family was a fit.
Oh, it has to be.
So not only was our family a fit, but the church that was in our heart, the more we could define it, we felt like it fit the needs of the city. So those were the two primary things. The fact that our family was a fit, and then the church that God was calling us to plant, no matter where we would plant that church, it fit the actual needs of the city.
Has that word potential driven some of the things?
Absolutely.
Guided some of those things?
Absolutely.
As you've served the people here?
Absolutely. Yeah, because the city is so full of potential. And there's nowhere like it on planet Earth. It's the most unique culture. I love it with all my heart. I always tell people that aren't from here, it's the spot in the country where the North, the South, and the Midwest all hit in one spot and has characteristics of all three, but it is none of those three. There's nothing like it.
When you think about what that word potential, that means there's something that's going to come forth.
Absolutely.
That means there's still something yet to be unearthed. There's still something to be discovered. I think a lot of times people want to go to something that the cake's already baked. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not looking at the ingredients. Yep. You know, nobody says, I can't wait to eat flour and salt and but they want the cake. Yep. But potential says, man, I see the ingredients. I'm going to need to put them together.
That's great.
I'm going to need to mix it.
Yep.
It's going to need some time in the oven. And then, and that's what you do as a planter. And I think that's encouraging for planters to know, because you can't go thinking it's all there waiting on me already.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not how this thing works.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it takes so much energy and effort. Absolutely, you have to have the call of God. And there are certain things that, at the end of the day, the greatest piece of wisdom that I got throughout this whole thing was that God has a job, and that I have a job, and that I'm not going to try to do his job, but I'm also not going to expect him to do my job.
That's great.
And it's that combination of being crystal clear on this is what God's responsibility is, and I can't do that. I can't control that, even if I tried, even if I wanted to, but there are some things that I can, and there is no way around it. That it takes work, effort, grit, some hustle. Has to.
I had a professor in college. He said, we were talking about leadership one day, and it was early on, man. Leadership was still, you're trying to figure out what that word even meant back in the 80s. And he said leadership is seeing potential in people when they don't even see it in themselves.
That's good.
Now that's common, it's not earth shattering, and he said if you'll go around seeing that in people, you'll be able to build a team. And obviously you've done it. Now tell us about the name. How did you, where, I know it's God, but what was your process with coming up with the name of your church that now is known?
So literally, when we had that moment with Heather, when we were sitting on those swings, we said,
she's the queen.
This is it. She's the first lady. She's my crown. That's what I call her, my crown. And we said, this is it. We're planting our flag.
Right.
This is where God's calling us. Burn the boats. No turning back.
Amen.
We literally, an hour later, said, this is going to be the name of the church. And it was on our heart. And really, at the end of the day, Cincinnati is known as the Queen City. It was known as the Queen City to the west, if you were going east to west. But then also, it's a very common phrase that's used for a city that is the biggest city in a state that's not the capital.
Oh, that's right.
And so so Charlotte, North Carolina, is a Queen City.
That's right.
And so they're also known as the Queen City.
Yeah.
And so we knew we wanted right from the jump, from the name of our church, to show that we are for the city, that we don't want anything from the city, that we believe God's hand is on the city of Cincinnati. And we wanted people to know right from the jump, even though that we were on a parachute coming in. We'd had no relationships. We'd never done ministry here. I knew one family, one of my college roommates lived in the Cincinnati area. And outside of that, we wanted people to know that even though we weren't from here, that God loves this city, and that we wanted the city to thrive.
You know, it's interesting about you, and we've got dear friends. We have a lot of mutual friends and a lot of respect for one another. Is people, when you talk about the Cromers, great leaders, honor, humble, smart. You know, you're a great combination. And to be able to, and you were that before you were a planter. You've been that in your life. So these are things that you did on staff, on a team, serving a pastor, serving others. I saw that at Highlands, of course, at Gateway. All those things, they were in you. You did that. When you came here, you brought that with you. Already great churches here in Cincinnati.
Yep.
You honored those great churches.
Yep.
You were thankful to come alongside of the other great churches because you're a person of respect.
Yep.
You're a person, but at the same time, you knew God put something great in your heart for this city to come alongside of the other great churches.
Absolutely.
So I just feel like you've done it very honorable. Tell me a little, talk to a church planner about how you go into a city with honor and leadership.
Yeah.
To respect what's been done, but to also be fired about what you're doing. Yeah,
well, I knew there was no doubt in my mind that God had called us to plant a church. There was no more I think, there was no more I feel. It was I know, I did the hard work. I know that God not only called me to plant a church, that he had put inside of me a unique expression of a church that did not exist.
Sure.
And that he called me to do it here. But I also know that, that I was coming into a city where I would reap a harvest of seeds that I did not plant and I did not water. Yeah. And so it's very important to me as just who I am as a person, what I've been taught from amazing churches like Gateway, from Highlands, my ARC family. It's just instilled in me this principle of honor. And we actually have a value at our church that honor is our posture. And that we're going to consistently choose to take the posture of honor. And so one of the things that we did before we even launched is we came here, we had a trip, and we scheduled 9 or 10 different coffees in a span of 2 days. I was so fired up on caffeine, but it was all with pastors in the city.
That's fantastic.
And a lot of people that have paved the way. And it was important for me very early in the process for them to hear from me that we were planting a church in Cincinnati. I didn't want them to hear from other people. I wanted to look
like you were carrying the weight.
Those leaders, those pastors, I wanted to look them in the eyes and say, I wanted you to hear this from me, but I also wanted you to know that I'm about God's kingdom more than my kingdom. Amen. I'm about the capital C church more than our church. And I just want to look you in the eyes and honor you as somebody who has paved the way, who's gone before me, who is planted and faithfully watered and made a difference in this. And I just want you to know that right off the bat that I honor you. And I'm not in competition with you. And that what I'm praying is that what happens in this city, the only way that it could happen is not by one church coming in and making a difference. It's by every church reaching its full potential. Yeah. And I want you to know right from day one that I'm in your corner.
That's so good, because I think if you're not careful, you're thinking that I'm gonna put that weight on the pastor that's already there.
Right.
You didn't let that weight be on them. You took that weight on yourself, regardless of how they responded.
Right.
Regardless if they got excited about you. Regardless if they were like, oh, I can't wait. You go ahead and take that step. It's you got to walk across the room first.
Right.
And I think that is an incredible attribute. So take us through the planning. Take us through just talk to us for a few minutes about what it was like.
Well, it was, from an emotional standpoint, there was two main emotions, and it was extreme excitement and terrifying fear. Yeah. And nothing quite in between. It was like this tennis match going back and forth, depending on the situation, the day, the hour, the conversation that you had. But really, we moved here in January 2018, not knowing we knew one family, that was it. And I didn't think that they would even come to our church. And so we moved here, true parachute, not knowing anybody. And I've never been more desperate and dependent upon God every single day. Yeah. I remember waking up during those first few weeks, and the first thing I thought, literally wake up, first thing I thought is, God, I need you today. Mm-hmm. I need you to open doors. I need you to, because I knew that the keys to everything that what God was calling us to do was relationally. I knew everything was through relationship. So I needed God to open some doors, but also I needed to do my part to make sure. And so we just started meeting anybody that would meet with us. Yeah. And I think I added it up. I think I had somewhere around 125 coffees in the 9 months from the time.
And how
we
did you
moved.
get those? How would you get those meetings? So you're meeting somebody at working out. You're meeting someone at the store. You're meeting someone at the dry cleaner. What was that transition for someone?
For the most part, it was whenever we made the announcement. Here's where we are planning
social
a church.
media.
Yeah. So once word started getting out, people would be like, "You need to meet this person. They live in Cincinnati." And really,
we'll connect the dots.
I would just ask and just say, "Do you know anybody in the city?" I don't care if they are pastors at a church. I just need to meet people in the city. And so when we first moved here, I had a whole catalog of names and numbers. And so I would start there, and I met with them. And then every time I would sit down with somebody, I'd first want to hear their story. Because almost every single person thought that I was coming to push something, sell something. Good. But I would know. I'd flip incredible. It and tell me about you. I want to hear about what's in your heart. Great. I want to hear about your family. And then eventually they would want to hear what I have to say. Yeah. And then I'd tell them our story and how God brought us here. And then I would ask every single time, who are 3 to 5 people that you know in this city that I need to know?
Yeah.
And this is the only ask that I made. Will you relationally connect me with them? Whether that be through a text, whether that be through an email, whatever. And then I would do the same thing, meet with those people, ask them, get 3 to 5 people that you know in the city that I need to know, meet with them. And that's essentially everything was relational, everything. Mm-hmm. And just who did I meet?
So then how did that go? Then what were the steps of then building a team?
So we really had 3 on-ramps is what I would call it, of how to be able to do it. We had a very relational, which is a coffee, just like, hey, hang out, let me tell you a little bit, let's get to know each other, and then I'll share with you the ways that you can connect and be a part of what we're doing. And I never pushed, never. The only thing I would ask people to do is pray. Okay. They say, would you pray for us? And then all these other steps, which is like connect us with people, give, be a part of the team, pray, and do whatever God tells you to do. If he tells you to do it, great, awesome. If not, cool. And so we would do it that way. The second way is my wife and I, Heather, we started hosting every Friday night. We would do a dinner party. And we would just start having people, and that's kind of like the medium on-ramp. Yeah. And we just started having people in our home every Friday night because we started having people move to the city. Right. And we wanted to make sure that they stayed connected. Yeah.
And in that evening of a Friday night, are you unpacking a little vision and values?
No.
That's just to get to know you.
We literally opened up our home.
So that's just relational.
And the most spiritual thing we would do is we'd pray before we. Okay. That was it. And then people could just hang out. And so we'd have people hang out till 11 p.m., midnight, just hang out and just.
Y'all got to leave.
Just talk. And we would just build relationship. And it was like this low pressure way for people to build relationships and to bring people that they had met in the city just to connect. And eventually it would turn into conversation centered around why we're in the city and what God is calling us to do. And conversation would just drift there. But then we 100% ran the art play. So if you need somebody to stamp like, this is the way to do it, let me tell you, I'm your guy.
And you're helping us make it better.
And so we started 6 months out is when we started having what we just called startup parties. Yep. Where we would, and so then that was everybody you met. That was the big net that we were gonna, and then that's where we cast vision, and we would tell people in about 15 minutes, here's what God's called us to do, and here's a very formal way for you to say, I want to be a part of this launch team, which is a very simplistic, it was exactly what it means. It is a team of people committed to launch this church.
So then they would, out of that, your startup party, they could then filter in to say, I want on the team.
Correct.
I could give, I can pray. Yep. And then somewhere in there, you begin to meet with those to build the team.
Yep. And so about 2 months out is when we started doing launch team gatherings, which was kind of ramping up towards launch Sunday, and that whole process was the launch team becoming the dream team. And so the picture
you
that
made that transition then.
Yeah. The picture that God gave me during the launch team was a circle facing out, because I think it's one level. A circle is one level, so there's no layers of leadership. Right. There is a circle where I'm on the launch team, you're on the launch team, every person's on the launch team, and it's a team of people committed to launch the church. But we're not inclusive. We're not exclusive. We're not facing inside. it's a circle that's facing out, always looking to add people to the circle. So the circle just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But then the launch team gatherings, the 2 months leading up to launch, it was the process of that circle becoming actual structure and becoming a triangle, which had layers of leadership and teams and all those things.
So you could get it done.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And and during those, so we get to the launch, and what was there's always that, okay, I thought it was going to be this way, but it was that way. I thought this was going to happen, but that happened. Yeah. What was that first 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay, what? Yeah. Good. And a lot of it, sometimes it's so much more positive.
Absolutely.
But then there's a few surprises.
Absolutely.
Prepare a church planter for what that could be like.
Well, I had a lot of wisdom. I had a lot of incredible people that invested in me beforehand. So, there's some things I felt very equipped and ready for that process. But then there's a lot of things where I was just advised to not have faith, but watch your expectations and not. And so one of my dear friends, Jason Laird, he told me, he said, don't turn around on launch Sunday until at least song 2. Like just don't even turn around.
Don't even do it.
Just worship Jesus. Just be there. Don't even worry about who's in the room.
Watch the drummer.
The problem is we went up after song 1.
Oh,
And so,
the little hollow greeting.
And I remember going up there and I'm like, there's people here. This is unbelievable. And then we came back up at the end and I was like, there's so many more people here. Where did they all come from? We had 642 people.
That is a massive
launch Sunday. And to God be the glory is such an amazing Sunday.
Launch.
And, honestly, we are at the time of this recording, we're 156 weeks in. And we say that we're still undefeated, 156-0, even through a global pandemic, all that fun stuff.
Because you were how many weeks in when Mr. COVID?
78.
Yeah, I was going to say,
78. It's been half. Literally half. And so, I honestly, Dino, I feel like I'm having the time of my life throughout these whole first 3 years. And I'm having so much fun. I've never felt more fulfillment, never felt more purpose. We talk in our churches about find what God's made you to do, and you'll discover this purpose and this fulfillment that you would never experience anywhere else. And I'm telling you, I feel like I'm living it. I feel like the most lucky guy in the world, doing it with the best people in the world. Such an amazing team that I love with all my heart, and in the city that I love. Literally, we just made a decision from day one. We're going to enjoy every moment. So we enjoyed the pre-launch. I didn't wish to just be a church. It was these 9 months.
You wish it all away.
I want to be in the moment, and I want to be in the moment at launch. And I don't want to just think about the first year when I could miss something, what God's doing right here. And then the first year, I wanted to be in that first year. And at the end of the day, I know that God's given us big vision. I know it. And all the things that God's done, I'm so thankful, but I know it's just the tip of the iceberg of what He's called us to do. But I'm committed to have that vision, but to also be very content where we're at right now. And my prayer from day one has been that we grow, not swell.
That's good.
I have no desire to swell.
Yeah.
Swelling is not healthy, and it doesn't sustain. But growth, if I were to go out and trip on the way out of this and hit my elbow and my elbow ballooned up, nobody would come to me and be like, bro, your arms, what are you doing?
Awesome.
Man, what's your secret? What's your secret? People are like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I think it's so easy for churches to look like that.
Yeah, sure.
And it'd be celebrated. It'd be, like that, where it's like, I don't know if that's the healthiest thing in the world. But if, you go out and you do 10 years of curls, and then you go and you get those nice arms, people are like, okay, because that's growth. That's not swelling, that's growth.
Well, you've done. What's interesting to me is you were a part of you've been a part of good churches.
Absolutely.
You've been a learner.
I think honestly, what I believe, my humble opinion, the best churches in the world.
And so, you're a learner. So, even just the way that you position you and your wife to be able to be at Highlands for a minute, Gateway. You traveled some. You've traveled and spoke because of your heart for students. Always learning, always having those conversations. And so you were well connected. You had friends. But how important was it for you to have a friendship of fellow church planters? Like even like in your what we call a class, your season.
Yes.
Maybe guys that had planted 6 months, a year. How important has it been for you to be connected to the fraternity of planters where you can just, go back and forth and do some 360, check it out?
I don't think there's been hardly anything that's been more important than that.
Wow.
Of just having people that are maybe just a little bit further down the road. People that were peers right here, right now. When I did art training, I was at the table with Mark Francie and Jordan Smucker. We all planted our churches on the same day. And, we talk and we communicate and all the time.
You can't replace that.
You cannot. And then there's been people that I've been able to connect with that have been a little bit maybe after us, and here's some things that we did, here's some things that worked, here's some things that didn't. But it's just that whole fraternity of people that have been there and done that understand and that are doing it like right here, right now, has been so incredible. To know that at any time I can pick up the phone and call and text 50 guys
what you see happen is
invaluable.
You see people that have some experience, and so they think, well, the experience that I had being a youth pastor, being a campus pastor, that'll automatically transfer over to church planting. I don't need to go through training. Maybe I don't need ARC or I don't need other church planting organization. I'm just going to go start it based on what I've already experienced. But what I have seen is a lot of times this is not that.
Absolutely.
And it's not, it's not plug and play. What did you learn? Again, you grew some things. You built some things.
Right.
How different has planting a church the last 156 weeks? How different was it from the other 156 weeks?
Yeah, it is for sure. It is for sure. There are some principles that absolutely transfer over and that are valuable. There's things that you are learning, and guys that maybe you want to plant one day that are in ministry roles right now, there's skills and there's leadership principles that absolutely transfer over. But there is a weight that is different than any other weight with that. And, that's that you almost don't know until you're there.
Yeah.
And I think I would encourage anybody that's in there to just take the humble posture of a learner and to realize I don't know what I don't know. The truth is, the first day that I ever was a lead pastor was the first day that I was a lead pastor. I can go and I can talk to a bunch of people, but this was my first day. All those other things, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And so to realize that and to be very sober-minded that the other things that I did, it's not invalidating that day, but at the end of the day, I don't know what I don't know about this. It's like you can read every parenting book in the world, but you don't know what it's like to be a parent until you have a child. And you just learn along the way. And that's one of those things that I want to learn the rest of my life. And constantly keep getting better.
Yeah. Well, we're living in fluid and flexible days, not just for a church planter, but with COVID.
Absolutely.
You've had to do that, move venues, move some locations, went to online, couldn't meet. You're in Ohio, different regulations, restrictions, and maybe someone in South Carolina or Texas or Florida or over on the West Coast. So take us through some of this fluid set up, tear down. We're in a space now. We're not in a space. How have you been able to lead through that?
Yeah. Well, everything that we've done through the last year and a half has been this kind of uncharted territory for leaders of today.
Yes.
Just kind of navigating through some of those things. It's happened in history, but not my history.
Right.
And so there's no playbook. I did not learn how to lead a church through a pandemic in Bible school. There was no class that kind of had that.
We're meeting here, now we're meeting
where's
there.
Where's that guidebook? So our first 78 weeks as a church was meeting in a high school, and it was a set-up, takedown environment. And, when we did that, we had on-site storage and everything was there. Amazing situation. And then March 8th, 2020 was our last Sunday. And then March 11th was the Wednesday night where kind of the world went boom, the NBA shut down, and then the next day it was like dominoes, this one after the other. So on that night, that Thursday night, we decided, hey, for this week, and we'll take it week by week, we'll go online. And so we went online.
Were you showing your services online?
No, we were not.
So you became online in a day.
Our literal online presence up until that point was a audio podcast. That was
of the service.
Yeah, of just the message.
Okay, just the message. Wow.
We had an audio podcast, and we had vision for that one day, but we're like, we're a ways from that. And so literally in the span of 2 days, we had to figure out how to do that. And then what ended up being week by week ended up being 26 weeks, a full 6 months. We were fully online as a church. Everything we did as a church during that 6 months, we transitioned to online, from groups to Grow Track. Everything for 6 months was that. And then for us to be able to even go back and to come back as a church in person, we were not able to do it at the school that we were at. The school system's buildings were all shut down. So for us to find, we had to find a alternate location, which was in the heart of downtown Cincinnati, and it was a theater. And so
you're having a retrofit.
Correct.
What you have at the school,
we had everything there,
may not be plug and play at the theater.
But that's after 6 months where we had to figure out, okay, who's on the team.
True.
Now, and figure out
where's your leaders.
And so we ended up having a very kind of minimal setup. And so we kind of went, because the venue was smaller. We had to kind of make shift what we did, and we had to figure out a very simplistic way with a smaller team, and figure out a way how to be able to still make it excellent, but also at the same time be able to figure out in the current climate, what does that look like in today. And so we were in the theater for right at a year, and we thought that was going to be a little seasonal. And I think the thing that we just made a commitment to is we had these guiding principles that we were going to make decisions by. And it was going to be the thing that no matter what, we're going to filter decision making through this. And with that, then, and some of those we're going to make sure that we are prioritizing people's health and safety, that we're going to honor our government and listen to wisdom and medical professionals. And then we were going to consistently continue to think long term. And it's not about right here, right now. God's called us to something in this city. I believe, for me personally, at minimum, I have a 30-year assignment. So what, 6 months, a year? That's nothing when you think about long. It's a long game. And so we're going to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that we are playing the long game for our city and our reputation and our character. And we're going to make sure, and that just really helped us in decision making. Now, at the same time, there's so much flexibility that had to be. We were married to our mission. We were absolutely not married to our methods, because our methods, everything ended up having to change. What's the word of 2020? Pivot. We had to pivot. We had to pivot like crazy. And so we did that many, many times throughout this whole crazy journey.
Brian, one of the things when people talk about you, and I had this conversation this week when I was telling somebody I was coming up here for the 3-year anniversary, out of their mouth was, man, they're great leaders. They're great leaders. And great leaders are great learners. We've already talked about that. You're a great leader, and you've put together some fluid, life-giving leadership structure. We've already discussed it.
Right.
I like how it's fluid. It can flex. It can move. Of course, because that's how church is right now. But it's life-giving. Talk a little bit about how that was in you, and that was there from the beginning, from day one. And how it's just continuing to scale to where you're at now.
Well, thankfully I had some experience to be able to see this is a few ways of how church can be done, and then factor in my personality, what are my strengths. So we just, at the very beginning of this whole bad boy, just started dreaming, when you combine all those things, what would be the ideal? Let's just shoot for the moon. What would be the ideal structure to be able to accomplish the vision that we know God's put in our heart? And let's try that, and let's at least see if we can do that from day one. And so we were able to do that, to say, okay, if we had unlimited everything, what would be the structure that we would do? And so we figured out what that structure was, and then we asked God, do we have the people to be able to start this from day one? And so obviously we've learned along the way and shifted and molded and do that, but it was important for me to have clarity. I think it's the greatest gift that I can give our church is clarity. It's not just big vision, but clear vision.
That's good.
And that's why it says, write the vision, make it plain so that other people can run with it. So I knew it was my responsibility not to just have big vision, but clear vision of not just what we were doing, but how we can actually accomplish that thing. I feel like that's one of my greatest strengths as a leader is not just having vision of where we want to go and recognizing where we are. I think how my brain's wired is I can think through how to be able to get there. And so we knew that the structure would help actually accomplish what God put in our hearts. Right. And so we decided to, let's just shoot for the moon and we'll try our very best. And that's what we did. And so we have, including our dream team, which is people that serve at our church, we have 5 different layers of leadership at our church. And
explain this.
And so, well, it was important for me to not be the one-man show.
Right.
And I'd learned from some of the best on planet Earth that it's not all about me. Yeah. And I can't do it, and to always build a great team and to be able to do that. And so, where it starts with me, and then I personally oversee a lead team of 4 people. And then from that, they oversee what we call hub leaders, which are just the major hubs of ministry within our church. And then hub leaders oversee team leaders. And the team leaders are simply the people that lead the specific dream teams at our church. And then we have dream team that's underneath that. And so that way we always have great spans of care. It was important for me, and a lot of this comes from my experience at Gateway Church, that we wanted our leadership team to be pastored and cared for from day one. That we wanted to make it clear that that we cared more about who they were, not just what they did.
Right.
And so we wanted to make sure as they were leading, as they were taking ground, as they were dreaming and having vision, but we wanted to make sure they were healthy and that they were, throughout this whole church planning process, which is a grind. There's no way around it. Like it takes effort and work, but that they were still having fun, that they loved Jesus, not just ministry, and that they felt like their souls were cared for and that they were pastored as they were leading and pastoring other people.
And you feel like that team is in place. So when you did move from the school to the theater,
right,
that team was able to just move with it.
Not only that, they were able to move into the online season.
True.
And so the structure was there to make sure that's how we pastored people throughout the pandemic when we were fully online, is through our teams and through our team leaders. And we basically mobilized everybody into like, okay, no matter what you were doing, you are all pastoral care. And we're all going to take care of our people and make sure that needs are taken care of. And we're going to make sure people stay connected when everything was saying to be spread out and to couldn't see each other, do that. Well, we have to fight to make sure people are stay connected. And then when we were transferring back to the theater, we're able to do the same thing and roll back in and have structure and leadership.
And now you're going back to the school.
Right. Yep.
And so that's 3 years of set up and tear down, 3 years of shifting. How have you kept people motivated? Because that's one of the things I hear a lot. Man, we're 4 years in, setting up at the middle school. We're 5 years in, we're 2 years in. How have you kept the team motivated where you're mobile, there's change? How have you been able to do that?
Well, I think me personally, I think there are some things that I've done, but I give 100% of the honor and credit towards the people that are leading those teams, the people that are motivating those teams, the people that are leading, that set up and take down process. But I think for me, the part that I could play is just to make sure that we are always having vision, always telling people the why.
Yeah.
Here's why we do this.
Yeah.
Here's what we actually get to be a part of, that you are setting up the house of God so that without this, people are not coming into an excellent environment where they can have a distraction-free environment where they can experience the presence and the power of God, and their lives could be changed forever. That you made it a great experience when they walked in from the parking lot and there was clear signage that you set out to do that. And we listen for stories. And so we had one guy that ended up coming to our church, getting saved, amazing testimony type thing. But the reason why he came to our church is he saw a sign that was out in front of the school and it had the service times on there. Well, somebody put out that sign. So you know what we celebrated the dog out of was, hey, we put out this sign. And listen, it connected
Go find that person.
It connected to a life forever being changed and a soul being saved and spending eternity in heaven. And because somebody put out a sign. And that God used that. And so that's a lot of my job, is to be able to celebrate those things, listen for those things, make sure our why is always in front. But the team the leaders that oversee that team, they're the ones that are the heroes. They're the ones that week in and week out make it fun.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, like you can do something like that and it'd be awful, or you could do something like that and it could be so much fun.
Yeah. And it seems like to me the way you're sharing it, just the way you speak, you're putting their interest first.
Yep.
It's very, what the people are experiencing. How are they growing? Mm-hmm. How are they being fulfilled in God's plan? Mm-hmm. Not just, hey, what are they doing to get my vision down the road? And how can they benefit what I'm trying to build? And that's obvious, and that's so much more appealing. So you're a little bit of a veteran. So you planted a church 3 years ago. You've been in ministry. How old are you now?
40.
You're 40, big 4-0, man, representing the 4-0. So you get to spend some time with us. I know coaching some guys, get to come to some of our launch training. You, Heather, always add so much value to these young couples, or, they're fired up, they're excited about going into cities, and they're trying to figure out a city. They're trying to pick a name. And so there's a lot of little mini Brian Cromers out there, and what do you want to tell them now? What is it like? Hey, make sure, big brother, a church planter, someone who's wanting to head in that direction. Big brother them for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I would share with somebody that is coming up is that you have to know your definition of success. Yeah, because it will drive you. It will motivate everything you do, and it will drive decisions, and it will drive how you think and how you feel, and it'll drive your emotions. It'll drive all those. So a very wise person once told me that success most time is viewed as results. So if the results are good, then you're successful.
Right.
And so it could be results as like, how many people go to your church. As long as that number is going up, then you're successful. If even like salvations, or how many people are in groups, how many people got water baptized, and how many people are serving on your serve team or your dream team, and all those things. And the problem is, it's never enough, ever.
It's true.
Ever. It is a carrot that is on a stick dangling in front of you.
Good.
As soon as you get there, there's more.
Yeah.
Because when is it enough? Okay, we reached 1,000 people. Awesome. That's great. We made it, guys. Let's shut it down. Let's do that. We're all content. Let's do that. No. Yeah. Why? Because there's more lost people, and there's more people that need Jesus. And so you'll want 1,500. Then you go 1,500, and you want 2,000. And so it's never enough. And so if it's never enough, you feel like you're losing. And so you do not feel like a success. But what happens whenever global pandemic comes, it shuts everything down. You don't have a clue how many are there. I'm telling you, it will crumble. It will crumble you. And so we just made a decision a long time ago, and this is what be my biggest encouragement to future planters, is that success is obedience, period.
That's good.
That it's all our jobs, no matter if it's a pastor, a business person, a doctor, a teacher, no matter who you are, it's all our responsibility to be as close as to God relationally as we can, so that we can hear his voice and then just simply do what he tells us to do. And if we do that, we are successful. In Joshua 1:7, it literally says, if you hear God's word, don't deviate to the left or to the right. It says you will be successful in all that you do. And so what we have done is we just made a decision from day one. We're tracking all those things. Sure. Do not get me wrong, because it is a dashboard on a car. If your check engine light's on, you probably should go get that checked out. Could be major, could be a minor thing. And so, but you would never say that your car is successful because the check engine light's off.
Right.
And so, but that's what we do a lot of times in the church world. And we just made a decision from day one. We are going to, success is obedience. Yeah. Period. Yeah. And all those other things matter, and we track it, but we're going to judge that by just, did we hear God, and did we simply do what he told us to do? So like as a preacher, what's success? Yeah. Is it how many responses were made, how vocal the crowd was, how many boys did you get in the hallway afterwards, how many, let's just be real, how many comments on social media, I was mentioned this many times this, and it's never enough.
No, it's not.
But when success is obedience, it's, did I do the hard work of hearing God? And then did I have the courage to say what he told me to say, how he told me to say it? And if I do that, I'm successful.
I had a guy tell me, if you don't understand your scoreboard, what is your scoreboard? If you start looking at everybody else's, and now you're in that vicious cycle, or you put the ball in the wrong basket.
Absolutely.
And you got to make sure you're doing what God called you to do. So let me ask you this question here as a final question. So we're 3 years, it's 3-year anniversary. So let's say it goes well, you invite me back.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm back at year 6. In 3 more years, what do you desire? What do you hope to see in 3 more years? I hope our church is. I hope we're continuing to be. I hope we're better at this. I hope this has happened. Because you have vision.
Absolutely.
We've talked about that. So now we're at year 6. We've gone another 156 weeks. What are you hoping for? What are you believing for?
Man, I'm believing, one, it's a great question because I think it's so important to be able to have something in the chamber on that one.
Yes.
That you are ready with, here's what God is calling us to do, and here's long term. And because I've just made a decision that I'm always going to have vision, but I'm going to let God determine the pace of the vision.
Yep.
And he's the one, because I can't control that anyway. And so, but when I lay my head down and when I dream about our church and when I spend time praying about our church, and I'm just asking God, will you help us just make the biggest difference that we can in the city with as many days as you'll give me on planet Earth. I just want to love people. I want to make a difference. I want to see as many people get to heaven as I can, because I know I'm going there, and I want to take as many people with me as I can. And I want to have fun along the way. I want to do it with people that I love. And to me, honestly, there's nothing, you cannot put a price tag on doing life and ministry with people you truly love. And I love being able to do life and ministry with the people I get to do life and ministry with, and that we still love each other, that we get along, that we dream together, that we have this idea that nothing is impossible with God, and that he literally can do whatever. I know that there's things that God's called us to meet specific needs within our city, and there's to be able to be literally the church that is for the Queen City, and to be able to say, okay, what are the needs of our city, and how can we love and serve and meet the needs, the tangible needs of the city, believing that when we meet those physical needs, that it opens up spiritual doors for people's hearts to be wide open. And there's no one better on planet Earth than you on that, of just serving people with no strings attached, and just seeing how God can just open hearts wide open for that, and to see communities change, and to see walls that are up in our city be broken in Jesus' name, and walls of racism, and walls of division, and hate, and just to see, we pray all the time that prayer from the Lord's Prayer, like, God, would your kingdom come, and your will be done right here in the city of Cincinnati as it is in heaven, to see heaven invade earth here. And any part that we can play in that, our answer is always yes.
It's neat talking to you, because when you're not, I'm 1 or 2 minutes in, we're having a conversation, and it's undeniable that you hear the word team. You've raised up a great team.
Absolutely.
And you can't do that without loving people. Loving people. And I think you guys love well. And I mean, could you have ever imagined, through the school, meeting your wife and serving in Texas, and you'd be in Cincinnati?
Never. Never. Never.
The big red machine.
Never.
The Cincinnati, the Bengals. All the above.
Never. If you would have told me that, I'd be like, you are crazy.
And I love it. I think I was reading some of the stuff you put out when you came here, the vision, and you could sense in that how you wanted to make the city great. You wanted to make the city better.
Yep.
You wanted to add value to the city.
Yep.
You wanted to love this city, make it great, and I think that's amazing. It's contagious. That and I think it needs to feel that way. When I served in Baton Rouge, I mean, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else in Baton Rouge. And now that I serve, of course, in Birmingham, but also with ARC, I love every city I go in now. I was with somebody the other day, and they were telling me about a city they want to go to in Connecticut. I've never been there, but by talking to the planner, I'm like, man, I want to move there with you. I want to move to Connecticut. And, you get excited about that. And I love these young church planners. I love what God is doing at ARC. You're a vital part of ARC because your story, there's not probably, when somebody asks lately, hey man, who's done it well? You're one of the first guys we talk about, this church. Why has ARC been important through this process?
I couldn't imagine going through what we've gone through without ARC. And I've got connected with ARC about 10 years before we planted.
Wow.
And it really, truly, from day one, become part of my family. And it's like, this is my tribe. These are my people. And there's so much culture and DNA. I mean, from day one, we wanted our church to be life-giving.
Yeah.
Where did we get that? We got that from the influence of our ARC family. And not only from training, I felt very trained and ready and felt like there was a playbook that was doable. And okay, I can do that if we just listen and we do all that. Not only funding, which was extremely helpful to be able to know that there is help, because ministry takes money, and at the end of the day, knowing that that's a big deal to be able to do that. But hands down, it's knowing that I was never alone. I always had family.
Yeah, that's good.
I always had people I could call.
Friends.
I'm talking about on good days and bad days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that want to call you on the good days, but the bad days, to know that I have not just one, not just two. I mean, so many people that I can contact that I know love me, care about me, or care about my family, care about my wife. And there's nothing like that with ARC.
That's so true.
I could not imagine going through this process without my ARC family, because that's what it is. It's not just a network. It's not just, it's my family. It's people I'm going to ride with till I go into the ground. That's,
our founder, Billy, that was his heartbeat. Was your relationship. Greg, and you've been around Greg Surratt. Mm-hmm. That's great. And Greg's like,
absolutely,
he just wants to be together. And I think that is irreplaceable. You have good friends. People love you. Obviously, you've shown yourself friendly, and you're not a person who you make it about you. And I thank God for that. And I know this is cliche, but we want to strive to be like Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, I thank God for every example, every model that's out there. But planting a church, leading a team in our home, being like Jesus, doing our money, caring for someone that's hurting, going to the hospital, doing a funeral, all these things, counseling, all these things that we do with, being there for a blended family or a single mom or our students. It boils down to being like Jesus. That's why we get into the ministry. Give us real quick the vision of the church. When you say, here's Queen City, here's our vision.
Yeah, well, our mission, which answers the question, why do we exist, is that we exist to reach all people and teach them to have a relationship with God that gets better and better. And so really it's our way of communicating the Great Commission, because that mission I cannot outrank. Jesus is the one that gave that one.
Yeah.
And as a follower of Jesus, that's our mission. And so our language, how we put it, is we want to reach all people. And that includes the people that right now are far from God, that you don't think would ever, all 2.1 million people in the greater Cincinnati area. We want to reach them. We want to reach all people and teach them to have a relationship, not religion, but a relationship with God, not behavior modification, not do's or don'ts, not compartmentalized hour of their Sunday, but a relationship with God that just keeps getting better and better. that type of relationship with God, a real one, it never goes in reverse. It just, year 2 is better than year 1. Decade 2 is better than decade 1. And I just want to see as many people.
I like that gets
in this
better
city.
and better.
Yes, sir.
Is that a phrase y'all use?
We use it all the time. Yeah, so you'll see it a lot. They're just better and better.
If I'm playing a church right now, I'm
just
using
doing that. Just jacking
that
steal
like
it.
crazy
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
I just felt my heart.
We had to figure out a different way how to say the best is yet to come.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was like,
you found a better way, my brother.
Better. It gets better.
Well, you guys are doing a great job. Thanks for having a conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Proud
for
of
having
you.
me, man. Love you.